Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The International Criminal Court has launched a formal probe into Israeli war crimes in the occupied Palestinian territories. In a statement, Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said the probe will be impartial and independent. Palestinian officials have welcomed the move. In Myanmar, 13 protesters have been killed and dozens wounded as security forces opened fire to quell anti-coup demonstrations in several cities. Police also arrested over 300 people for demanding the release of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi and restoration of democracy. At least 30 protesters have been killed since the February 1 military coup. In a major upset, Yusuf Raza Gilani, the joint opposition candidate, beats ruling party's Hafiz Sheikh in the hotly contested Senate elections in Pakistan. He bagged 169 votes against Sheikh's 164. The ruling party is projected to emerge as the largest party in the upper house as results pour in for the remaining 36 seats. ISIS has claimed the responsibility for the attack that killed 3 female media workers in Afghanistan on Tuesday. The women aged between 18 and 20 were shot on their way home from work. Their burials took place in Jalalabad after prayer ceremonies. Saudi Arabia says only vaccinated pilgrims will be allowed to perform Hajj this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, Brazil has reported a record 1,641 deaths overnight, with the toll crossing 257,000. Here in Pakistan, the virus has infected more than 1,300 people and claimed 75 lives in the past 24 hours. Nationwide, the number of deaths has exceeded 13,000. Globally, there are 2.5 million fatalities and nearly 115 million cases. And in the Pakistan Super League, Multan Sultans are chasing a target of 177 runs set by Quetta Gladiators at the National Stadium in Karachi. Usman Khan scored 81 runs for Gladiators. Earlier, Karachi Kings beat Peshawar Zalmi by 6 wickets thanks to half-centuries by Babar Azam and Muhammad Nabi. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. The International Criminal Court has launched a formal probe into Israeli war crimes in the occupied Palestinian territories. In a statement, Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said the probe will be impartial and independent. She said the investigation will cover crimes committed during the 2014 Gaza conflict. Bensouda named the Israeli army and defense forces as possible perpetrators. Palestinian officials welcomed the move, calling it a long-awaited step towards justice. Last month, the ICC ruled that it had jurisdiction over the occupied Palestinian territories that Israel captured during the 1967 war. ISIS has claimed the responsibility for the attack that killed 3 female media workers in Afghanistan on Tuesday. The women aged between 18 and 20 were shot on their way home from work. The burials took place in Jalalabad after prayer ceremonies. Local officials say all 3 victims were associated with a local channel in Ekas TV. The same media network lost its prominent journalist Malale Maiwand in a similar attack in December last year. The latest violence follows a pattern of attacks targeting security officials, journalists and judges. ISIS claimed responsibility for some of those attacks. In a major upset, Yusuf Raza Gilani, the joint opposition candidate, beats ruling party's Hafiz Sheikh in the hotly contested Senate elections in Pakistan. He bagged 169 votes against Sheikh's 164. The ruling party is projected to emerge as the largest party in the upper house as the results pour in for the remaining 36 seats. A total of 78 candidates from across the country are contesting. All candidates from Punjab province have already been elected unopposed after disqualification or withdrawal of other contestants. US-based Freedom House organization has changed India's status from a free country to partly free. In its annual report, the group said civil liberties in India have declined since Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. It added that India's fall from the upper ranks of free nations may have a damaging effect on the world's democratic standards. It says increased pressure on activists and intimidation of journalists had led to a deterioration of civil liberties in the country. The report added that under Modi, India has abandoned its potential to serve as a global democratic leader. It also expressed concern over a spate of attacks against Muslims. Freedom House is a non-profit organization which conducts research on political freedom and human rights. The former Chief Minister of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has moved the High Court over New Delhi's refusal to issue her passport. In her petition, Mehbooba Mufti said the passport has been denied so far because of the lack of police verification. The former Chief Minister said she has the right to hold a passport as she is a citizen. She has also asked the court to take action against those who limited her personal liberty by not responding to her request. In India, farmer unions say their leaders will visit poll-bound states and seek votes in favor of parties contesting against the ruling BJP. The unions say they have also decided to expand their campaign across India to widen their support base beyond 3 states. Addressing a rally, a union leader said they will appeal to people to punish the government for bringing anti-farmer laws. Meanwhile, the Maharashtra government is under fire for ordering a probe into tweets by the BJP's IT cell on the protest. In Punjab, the ruling Congress party has hailed the chief minister for his stand against the new farm laws. Tens of thousands of farmers continue to stage protests at the border points of New Delhi against the contentious reforms. The Saudi-led military coalition says it has destroyed a drone launched by the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Saudi state media quoted the coalition as saying it intercepted a drone targeting the southern region of the kingdom. This comes a day after coalition forces downed another Houthi drone headed towards its southern region. The Yemeni rebels have repeatedly carried out cross-border missile and drone attacks on Saudi cities. At least 10 rockets have hit a military base in western Iraq that hosts US-led coalition troops. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Wayne Murato said Iraqi security forces are leading the response and investigation. In a tweet, Murato said the rockets hit the Ain al-Asad base in Al-Amba Governorate. There were no immediate reports of casualties. The attack marks the first since the US attacked Iran-aligned militia targets along the Iraq-Syria border last week. France has asked Iran to make clear gestures towards the resumption of a dialogue over the 2015 nuclear deal. The Élysée Palace says President Emmanuel Macron expressed a deep concern over Iran's decisions to violate the accord. In a statement, the presidential office said it is vital Tehran returned into compliance and cooperated with the UN's atomic watchdog. Meanwhile, Iranian state media says Tehran has made it clear the only way to revive the deal would be for the US to lift the sanctions. It repeated that Iran's decision to reduce its obligations under the deal was due to the US withdrawal in 2018. Russia has accused the US of a hostile anti-Russian lunge after the imposition of new sanctions. Earlier, Washington announced curbs on 7 Russian officials over the alleged poisoning of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. In a statement, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said Moscow will retaliate on a reciprocal but not necessarily symmetrical basis. She called the move another blow to the US-Russia ties. Zakharova said all this was just an excuse to continue overt interference in Russia's internal affairs. The spokesperson said the US was free to choose whether it wanted equal dialogue with Russia on a reasonable basis, but said Moscow would not pay attention to any sort of sanctions. The United States has expressed concern over the possible reprocessing of nuclear fuel for bombs by North Korea. This comes after the International Atomic Energy Agency highlighted Pyongyang's continued nuclear activity. Speaking at a virtual event, head of intelligence for the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Rear Admiral Michael Studman, warned that such activity could raise tensions with Pyongyang. Studman said North Korea's doings could be aimed at getting the Biden administration's attention. He added Pyongyang could use the activity as a bargaining chip to press for sanctions relief. The new U.S. administration is currently conducting a full review of the North Korea policy. The U.S. has pressed Ethiopia to end hostilities in the northern Tigray region. The State Department says Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in a phone call. Blinken cited a growing number of credible reports of atrocities and human rights abuses and violations. The Secretary of State called for the withdrawal of the outside forces from Tigray. He asked that Addis Ababa work with the international community to facilitate an independent probe into the abuses and hold those responsible accountable. He acknowledged Ethiopia's recent announcement of full and unhindered humanitarian access in Tigray. Saudi Arabia says only vaccinated pilgrims will be allowed to perform Hajj this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, Brazil has reported a record 1,641 deaths overnight, with the toll crossing 257,000. Globally, COVID-19 has claimed more than 2.5 million lives and infected nearly 115 million people so far. More in this report.
While the developments in vaccines bring hopes of normalcy, new variants of COVID-19 have got governments mulling the decision to ease restrictions. The UNICEF says more than 168 million children worldwide have had schools completely shut for almost a year. And 214 million students have missed more than 3/4 of in-person learning. Scientists warn a highly transmissible COVID-19 variant that emerged in Brazil and has now been found in at least 20 countries, which can infect people who previously recovered from the disease. Even with such news, the U.S. state of Texas has lifted the mask mandate and declared that it is time to open 100%. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden says the country is on track to have enough vaccines for every adult in the country.
And I'm pleased to announce today, as a consequence of the stepped-up process that I've ordered and just outlined, this country will have enough vaccine supply, I'll say it again, for every adult in America by the end of May. By the end of May. That's progress, important progress.
In Europe, the uptake of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine in France stood at 24%, well below the country's target of between 80 and 85%. Spain says it will buy 17 million more doses of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine as part of a new deal negotiated by the European Union. Meanwhile, Italy has ordered the closure of all schools in the hardest hit areas and extended curbs on businesses and movement until after Easter. But battling the world's worst surge in cases, the Czech Republic has reluctantly entered a stricter 3-week lockdown.
People are really angry. The leading politicians are breaking the rules which they had themselves designed. And then they are surprised that people with lower IQ are saying that they do not want to adhere to the restrictions when the politicians are not keeping them. The whole problem is in the people governing us.
A coalition of healthcare experts says out of 412 COVID-19 related attacks on medics worldwide, India had the highest number of 128. Meanwhile, Australia says it will seek the support of the Defence Forces in its COVID-19 immunisation drive.
In Pakistan, COVID-19 has claimed 75 more lives and infected nearly 1,400 people in the past 24 hours. This pushes the nationwide death toll over 13,000. Health officials say Pakistan has reported over 583,000 cases since the pandemic began. The health ministry says there are more than 16,000 active cases across the country. So far, over 554,000 people have recovered from the disease. Meanwhile, Pakistan, Nigeria and Indonesia will be among the biggest recipients of the COVAX vaccine initiative. Islamabad will receive more than 10 million doses before June. In Pakistan, Qatar Amiri Land Forces commander has lauded Pakistan Army's sincere efforts for regional peace. Major General Asad Hassan Muhammad Al-Khayareen called on Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa in Rawalpindi. The two expressed views on the regional security situation and the Afghan peace process. They also discussed matters of mutual interest. The Qatari chief received the Guard of Honor earlier on his arrival and laid a floral wreath at the Martyrs Memorial. The 4th International Pakistan Army Team Spirit Competition 2021 is underway at the National Counter-Terrorism Centre Pubbi near Kharia. The 3-day competition is designed to test mental agility and tactical proficiency of the participating teams. The teams have so far participated in the endurance test, hideout occupation and rehearsed quick tactical level battle drills. Besides 8 domestic teams of the Pakistan Army, teams from 8 allied countries are participating in the competition. Teams from Jordan, Sri Lanka, Turkey and Uzbekistan are involved as the participants, while Morocco, Indonesia, Kazakhstan and Tajikistan are participating as observers. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The U.S. has decided to increase multilateral pressure on Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro to hold fresh elections. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the remarks over a phone call with Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said Blinken stressed the importance of fresh and fair polls. In a statement, Price said the Secretary of State pressed for a peaceful democratic transition in Venezuela. He added Blinken and Guaido also discussed urgent humanitarian needs in the country, and Blinken applauded efforts to find solutions and committed to continued U.S. support to Venezuelans. In Greece, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake has hit the northwest of Larissa. Tremors were also felt in neighboring Albania, North Macedonia, Kosovo and Montenegro. According to local reports, some houses were destroyed, while churches and schools were also damaged. The Civil Protection Agency has also reported landslides in the region. No injuries or casualties have been reported so far. The Australian High Commission has planted a Miyawaki forest in Islamabad to contribute to Pakistan's Spring Tree Plantation Campaign 2021. More in this report.
Commissioner Dr. Jeffrey Shah and Pakistan's Climate Change Minister Zertaj Gul led the event. Speaking at the occasion, Dr. Shah said he hopes that this initiative contributes to making Pakistan cleaner and greener. He said Australia and Pakistan have long-standing cooperation on the environment and tackling climate change.
I hope these trees help regenerate not just the environment here in this marvellous city, but contribute to making Pakistan cleaner and greener. I want to commend the government of Pakistan and in particular Prime Minister Khan for championing the need on a global stage for climate action and environmental conservation.
The Japanese technique Miyawaki is used to create dense and multi-layered forests. It ensures that plant growth is 10 times faster and the resulting plantation is 30 times denser than usual.
3 people, including Panamas Council, have died in Colombia after strong river currents swept away their car. Colombian authorities say the deceased include the diplomat's husband and a colleague. They said Telma Barria Pinzon was en route to the south of the country. Rescue workers have managed to recover all 3 bodies. The officials added the 2 others inside the vehicle survived. The Colombian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has sent condolences over the council's death. And now the business updates. The Wall Street stocks have opened flat as disappointing private employment data for February dampened enthusiasm. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Index traded fractionally higher, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite fell 1/8%. The S&P 500 index fell nearly 0.5% at open. Meanwhile, oil prices have risen, boosted by expectations that OPEC Plus producers may decide against increasing output. The U.S. Commerce Department has issued final anti-dumping duties on aluminium sheets from 18 countries it investigated. The announcement followed the confirmation of new Commerce Secretary Gina Raimonda. The duties include up to 243% tariffs on imports from Germany and around 5% from Bahrain. Germany is the largest exporter of aluminium sheets to the U.S. and had the highest anti-dumping rate, followed by Bahrain. Brazil, Croatia, India and Taiwan are among the other countries to receive anti-dumping duties. The duties will come on top of the 10% tariffs imposed on most aluminium imports by the previous administration. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.